We were probably going to do item 2 on consent, but I just had a quick question. So who wants to come up on item 2? Good morning.
And item number 2 are reports from the Community Development Department and the CAO relative to the East Los Angeles State Enterprise Zone designation.
Good morning, Councilman. I'm Cliff Weiss from Economic Development Division at CDD.
Great. And this is it have we had this MOU before?
Not for
This is the
this
first-
zone, but we have MOUs for other zones.
Okay, so this was authorized in 1988,
Correct. At that time, they did not require an MOU.
but now they do.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the first time they've required the MOU as part of it.
Yeah, that started about 2 years ago with the last round of enterprise zone designations.
And that's right, this was the one that went all the way up to San Fernando and Northeast. It's a long.
Right, that was
It's a
the,
big East LA. It's way, yeah.
well, that was the Los Angeles zone, and that does incorporate everything from Sylmar through central LA down to South LA. This one incorporates the city's portion of East Los Angeles and a portion of the county's unincorporated area.
Okay, so this, and how long will this MOU, what's the,
15 years.
this will be 15 years?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? I know one of the questions we had, just in, I was sitting with some people from the Economic Alliance on well, whatever day is today. I think it was Monday morning with a program in my district, and we were talking about the importance of marketing the enterprise zones and so forth. So is part of your plan to do even more? I'm sure, again, you've marketed over the years, so
Yeah, we have a very detailed marketing plan, which was part of our application to the state. It included everything from mass marketing, direct mail. We get information from Office of Finance on all new businesses, and we categorize those by zip code and then send those like a welcome letter and tell them about the benefits. So we have a variety of things that we use. The DWP helps us out with inserts in their mailers. We use everything that we can and try to tag on to whatever we can to get freebies, because we have no marketing budget. So we do the best we can with the resources.
do you, I know in the Valley, and that's what I'm most familiar with, which is VEDC, I know, and they all try to market that. But
Absolutely.
do we try to work with businesses to convince them to move? Because once they're in there, they get the benefits. But if we're trying to convince them to move to those areas based on the fact that there are state enterprise zone tax credits and so forth in there.
Yeah, some of our partners, like the Los Angeles Economic Development Commission, they are very well aware of the benefits, and when businesses come to them to try to locate sites, they let them know. Very often, businesses already are aware that the city has zones, either federal or state, and one of their questions is, find us a site within those areas. So there's a great deal of recognition on the part of site location managers that the city has these.
Great. Could you, again, I know you have no money for marketing, but could you send me what it was part of the state application that looks at how you're marketing that? And I'd like to be helpful going
Absolutely.
forward, and to, when I speak, to be able to know a little bit more and to be able to indicate what the benefits are and how we can engage people, because I think there are a
I'd
lot
be
of
happy to do
businesses.
that.
As we look at being more business friendly and getting more businesses, then we'll try and do that.
Be happy to. Thank you.
Great. So we'll go ahead and adopt that as at this point in time, a communication from a member of the committee. So
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And
Great.
item number 1 is a report from the Community Development Department relative to the Workforce Investment Board Year 9 Annual Plan to provide employment services to businesses and job seekers.
So we have a whole team here.
Right.
but this is good representation that our work on workforce really has been a real team effort. And so what we'd like to do is have Larry kick it off and really give the large vision that we've been working under. And then we could talk in detail of what we're doing. And then I know the CAO has its report to give.
Okay. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I have to, before you speak, I want to just compliment, Larry and the mayor's office, because they really have engaged in this, the workforce development and how important it is, and see the linkage. And all too often, it really hasn't always been a top priority in mayor's offices. And seeing that, I think, is really great, and the linkages with the business. So I just want to, in the beginning, even before you make your presentation, say that.
Well, what's kind of exciting is that it probably wasn't on the public's, top 10 list
Right.
for the first 2 years of the administration, but we kind of labored in the fields and really tried to figure out not just how we address the $40 million in workforce investment formula funds, but also the grant making, also all of the other leveraging that we can do with all our departments. And we actually now have, I think, a kind of exciting comprehensive plan that this is really the first year really of implementation of it. Last year was the year where the proposal was put forward. The city council adopted it as the city's plan. So we actually have a City of Los Angeles workforce development strategy that has the department, the WIB board, the city council, the mayor's office, all kind of really, in tune on it. And it's really kind of an exciting moment, because a lot of the pieces, a lot of the country is actually starting to look, sit up and kind of take notice of doing a comprehensive workforce strategy using all of the levers in terms of, hiring, in terms of contracting, in terms of leveraging our local training capacity with LUSD and community college districts. So it's been a really exciting period for us, yeah. So what I would do is actually, do you have a copy of the annual plan here?
I think it's in here, yes.
If you go to the Appendix F, I believe it is, and it's a City of Los Angeles Workforce Development Scorecard. It's towards the end.
It's toward the end, okay.
Yeah, it's at the very
Right
end,
here.
yeah.
Thank you. I'll cheat on his.
There you go.
Oops, sorry.
So there's, it's just a bunch of numbers, but it's actually not bad as kind of a quick outline for the different pieces of work. So the work that really was in place when the mayor's office got here is the Workforce Investment Board had really focused on how do we take our $40 million of Workforce Investment Act dollars and create some innovation. And so take what we normally provide, which is we have 17 work source centers, which are contractors, 13 one source centers that basically do case management of youth into jobs, right? And how do we get those to actually build a system to make sense of how do we do local hire on our contracts? How do we do first source on our personal service contracts? How do we interact and build a system?
And you said 17 work source centers and
13 one-source centers. And the one-source centers,
how do you define them differently?
so the work source really serves adult populations. There's a universal access component to that, so we have about 140,000 people that come through those set. Those are like the Urban League and, Watts Labor Community Action Center, El Proyecto, Arbor. There's 17 Goodwill, which have universal access. So part of it is we have Cal Jobs and Career Builder and all the others and train people on how to do accessing of jobs and how to do online applications. It's a kind of a job match process. And then a certain percentage we take in. So we have about 6,000 individuals that we case manage into a job, ideally a career, right? So the work source serves an adult population, but it also includes younger people. The one source is focused. It doesn't have a universal access component, and it's straight up case management of young people into jobs, right?
Great.
Also, similar contractors that, I think Proyecto has a one source contract as well. Each of them is about $1 million in terms of the contract for those. So what we first did, and this was sort of in place when we got here, is we took $1.5 million off the top of the work source and one source system, right, or of the work source system, put it into an innovation fund, and say we're going to seed training. In that training, so we started up the truck driver training school, we started up the bus driver training school in partnership with MTA. We have this advanced manufacturing project up in the valley in terms of dealing with what's left over the aerospace industry. We have construction careers training, the community faith-based construction efforts that we're doing. We have work on utilities, on hospitality, both on the restaurant side and the hotel side. right? And so we have now seeded those training programs and been able to bring in a lot of matching dollars and actually have built them into pretty sizable training efforts. And so we've gotten from the $40 million that we have in WIA formula dollars, we've added another, and this is a lot of it thanks to Jaime Pacheco and to the system applying for grants, we've added another $20 million.
Wow.
That has primarily about training and placement.
And where have you added that 20 million from?
So it's Department of Labor, it's the governor gets to skim, quite honestly,
Right.
15% of all formula dollars off the top, and then re-grants those to communities, and then 25% of all adult dislocated dollars. There's a 25% set aside he gets to re-grant. But we've not been as successful in the past as we've been recently by having the Innovation Fund and then being able to match that, the development of the Innovation Fund, by bringing in the additional grant dollars. Department of Corrections is doing a big ex-offender program with some of our workforce centers. So we've been able to build up the system using this Innovation Fund. So
That's
that's
a
been
great story. 20 million new, I mean,
Some of them have been private.
wow.
Larry, some of them have been private grants as well.
Yeah. So, United Way has taken on and they put together a funders collaborative. So there's kind of a recognition about workforce being a powerful tool for cities to address their basic needs. And it's an interesting opportunity because it goes across the aisle in terms of labor and management. Right. So, the WIB has a majority, 26 business leaders sit on the Workforce Investment Board. We have, I think, 24 new WIB commissioners and reappointed 26. And we have a really solid group of people that have really been great leaders on this issue. You have your required partners there like LAUSD, Community College District, and a number of the local regional leaders on the business sector. So step one. Step two, I know I'm taking too long here,
Okay.
but step two has been really last year in June. We were able to get a MOU signed between the Community College District, LAUSD, the Chamber, the County Fed, the City, and the United Way. And we've asked United Way to play the lead on what's called the LA Workforce Systems Collaborative. And we've taken on 5 pieces of work. I won't kind of go into that, but I'll let you if you want to ask questions about it. But we meet every month. We've added EDD and LEDC to that conversation as we're building a system of workforce development. Because quite honestly, even with our $20 million of training dollars and grant dollars, when you do 6 different sectors that we're focused on developing training in, the amount of money we have isn't enough to do more than what you might describe as boutique training. It's not enough to really influence the industry. It's not enough to bring it to scale. And if we have to pay for training, it doesn't really get you there in terms of the numbers of people trained. And so you can look through the top sector, strategy 1, you can see the numbers of people who are training. It's important, but it doesn't leverage ultimately the industry. Right. So the way that happens is you have to bring in the institutions that get average daily attendance dollars to do the training. Mm-hmm. So that's LAUSD. They get about $300 million in their adult training programs between their skills centers, occupational centers, and adult ed programs. LA Community College District is kind of the hope of the future for training our workforce. Mark Drummond was able to increase the average daily attendance from $2,400 per person to $3,100 when he was the state chancellor. He is very interested in trying to develop a new mission for Community College District. Only 9% of Community College District students get an AA at this point. They need a new mission. So their new mission that they're developing is what's called these certificated programs. It's a little bit threatening to some of the teachers who see themselves as preparing people for 4-year degrees, but they have to have both missions as part of where they're going. And so that piece of work is moving forward. And so what we're doing is we're actually taking our workforce centers and we're co-locating them on community college campuses. So LACC now has the Hollywood Workforce Center. We're looking at East LA Skills Center to actually co-locate there. We're looking at a number of opportunities. Trade Tech, we have a UAW Workforce Center or Chicana Surface Action Center. We're looking to relocate at Trade Tech. Trade Tech is doing a big bond measure on the November ballot, Prop J, which promises to build these kind of collaborations as part of the city supporting Proposition J moving forward. Panorama City potentially becomes a satellite campus. There's a lot of things that we're actually making headway on in terms of this workforce systems collaborative. We're doing our joint summer jobs. We got the community college district to come up with 1,000 summer jobs this summer through their LA Scholars program. So we're doing a number of pieces together. The third thing is about leveraging all of our contracting and all of our hires in the city, right? So we do a huge amount of contracting. We had, prior to 3 years ago, we had a project labor agreement down at the airport, but it didn't have a sophisticated local hire strategy inside of it. We had one prior PLA, project labor agreement, ESIS, the sewer intercept system, that was a project labor agreement. But we've now been able to put a much more sophisticated, focused local hire strategy with requirements into, now we have 13 project labor agreements at Public Works. We're looking at a department-wide PLA. We have a CRA PLA policy, local hire policy. Right? And the reason you need a project labor agreement is that work is brought to a job based on how long somebody's out of work, because you have existing contracts between primarily unions and these union signatories. And it's brought based on how long somebody's out of work and how much seniority they have. But if you want to bring people to the job based on where they live, you need a superseding contract that everybody agrees to, which is what a project labor agreement really is, and what it gives us the tool to accomplish our city goals of making sure that our city dollars actually benefit to the extent we can city residents. And it actually creates tax benefits as well for the city. So we've been doing that piece. We have something moving at the port. We have at the CRA. We have something airport. We have to wait until a new administration, because President Bush's first act when he became president was an executive order that said you cannot use federal funds and use project labor agreements on federal funds. So we're waiting for a change of administration to renegotiate that to
Add
be
that
able.
to a long list of things we want to do.
Yeah. But that was his very first executive order that he delivered. So, and we're doing the first source. So, as you know, council passed a first source ordinance that is Bureau of Contract Administration, which is an amazing partner in trying to move all of this work forward. They administer all the contracts in the city. We're trying to get them contracts with airport, DWP, port, CRA. They have MOUs with most of them to actually administer the contracts there as well on local hire. They're trying to get apprenticeship as something, the right to administer that as well from the state division of apprenticeship standards. So we're able to kind of move a lot of the pieces sort of forward on local hire on our contracts, right, construction contracts, and first source on our personal service contracts. And that would be, for example, the fire department, they require brush clearance at a site. There's a brush clearance company that they have a contract with. That brush clearance company hires young people to do the brush clearance. The first source contract would say for the first 10 days that you have a new hire, you have to allow our work source and our one source system to send you qualified candidates from the city to be able to take an advantage of those jobs that are going to be living wage jobs, right, because they're contract jobs. So it's
Did you see yesterday Janice Hahn introduced a motion on PLA for the airport construction, but until there's a change in the executive order, that can't come to fruition.
Was it
That
airport or port?
Wasn't it port?
I'm
I thought it was-
Maybe I.
it was
assuming
the
it
There were
was
two
port.
motions she did, and I thought they were both airport,
Okay.
but maybe one was port and one was
Maybe.
airport.
Maybe
One
so.
was on the sky caps issue, but there was
Oh, the
another
sky,
one.
yeah.
It was on the airport, so maybe I just assumed the other. as I was
Yeah.
reading it, that they were. Okay.
I don't know, I should
Port.
program closer with Janice on that question. I should probably call her. I know that the port issue is an interesting question because there's about $2 billion in public works construction that's booted up at the port, but there's probably another, without a PLA, right, and there's another probably $8 billion in private construction based on the 14 EIRs that have kind of
Yeah.
backed up. But if we ever clear those out as a result of the Clean Truck Program and the Cleaner Action Plan, we have the ability to have a huge amount of volume of work that could benefit LA residents in terms of construction. If we can put that under PLA in the same formula that CRA uses, applying, because it's on port property, it's on city property. So there's huge potential for additional work and opportunity using local hire. The tools that workforce development professionals have: first sourcing, personal service contracts, local hire on construction contracts. And then personnel is working with us. We aren't having any hires right now, but we have this LA City Works program, which is, again, asking our workforce centers to refer people for these vocational worker positions. We have some actually people working at the port and the airport because they still have done some hiring. on moving that forward. But again, it's an opportunity for local hire on our city jobs. Right? So then the fourth strategy has to do with youth and connecting youth up to jobs. In here, you're just tracking the ones that are living wage jobs, because the overall strategy is to move 100,000 Los Angeles area residents into living wage jobs by June 30th, 2010. We're right now at 44,898 in terms of metrics of tracking individuals into living wage opportunities. But in addition to these opportunities, the other big piece is that we've gotten 30,000 kids into summer jobs. And that's a huge piece of work that CDD carries the lion's share of responsibility for. And the mayor just nailed us with an increase in our what we're
He
going
likes to do that, doesn't he?
Yeah, he did. So we've got LACCD to step up, LAUSD recommitted even under the current scenario, which is quite remarkable.
And the overall funding for that is both city, LAUSD, private, correct? Is that?
Exactly.
The county of
County.
Los
County,
Angeles.
okay.
County, when we got here, we said, okay, we had about 3,000 summer jobs, 1,400 funded by the Summer Youth Employment Program, $2 million on the general fund, and there was TANF incentive dollars. And we went to the county and said, well, that's going to be okay for next year, and said, no, we ran out of the TANF incentive dollars. So we begged and lobbied and had all of the folks go to the county, and the county for the first time in 2006, they did $6.2 million out of their general fund, countywide, and so that 2.6 comes to the city.
Okay. And that 30,000 includes the county part of it? It's city and county?
Oh, yeah. So it's really kind of like a regional system. It's inspired by the fact that New York has about 40,000 summer jobs for their kids, but it's city, county, school district overlay. So it's, again, part of our regional systems building. We're taking joint responsibility. We're letting them take responsibility for our numbers. We take responsibility. So it's trying to build a unified regional strategy on
Because
that.
kids don't know whether or not they're in the county or the city. They just want a job.
Exactly. So, and this summer, HACLA's stepping up, doing 250 from their general fund. So there's a lot of really good work moving forward in terms of those opportunities. And then the fifth strategy is kind of an enlightened kind of labor strategy in terms of the work that we do in partnership with business and sometimes with labor to be able to take existing jobs that are low-wage jobs, and that is one of the biggest problems we have in the city, is we have many more low-wage jobs as a percentage of our workforce than any other major city in the country. So we've been able to do some work with cabin cleaners. So cabin cleaners are now under living wage at the airport. And that's work that's done primarily by Bureau of Contract Administration and others, work with port truckers, et cetera. And then the sixth strategy is about job creation. And so those are the community benefit agreements that get attached to development. So LA Live, eventually there'll be 3,000 jobs there. Good morning. Good morning. But there's 600 at Nokia Theater right now. So that's the pieces of work. It's been a great year of sort of test and development of our city workforce plan, but it takes the WIA dollars as well as all of our department proprietary contract dollars and our local hiring to kind of get to a comprehensive strategy on workforce development.
This is an annual plan that you do at this time each year,
Yep.
and you have to submit it to the federal government, is that, or is it kind of our own local document, or serves both purposes?
It serves both purposes. Actually, by federal legislation, the Workforce Investment Board must pass and approve the plan. Then it comes to locally elected officials, which is the city council and mayor. So by design, they try to get everybody on the page. Previous years, the plan was always seen as a funding document rather than really as a strategy. So we did change that in the last 3 years to really bring people together to have a greater vision for the city. And I think that's where you really see this team consensus approach. The document we follow very closely as in terms of our authorities to execute. So we could have the vision, but you have to have a plan of action of how to execute. So that's where the department really, or I said our department takes the lead, but it really is departments that are executing this actual plan. And I'd like to turn it over to Greg to actually give you the WIB's perspective on this, because they play a real critical role on that.
I'm Greg Irish, council member.
Yeah, long time, Greg.
Yeah, long time. Listen,
Good to see you.
good to see you. I need to explain something, too, because we just went over the overarching strategy, which is the city strategy. The council has approved this, the mayor has approved this, and the Workforce Investment Board has approved this. When we went through the scorecard, it reflects this strategy. What we're asking you to approve is a subset of this. So when you look through this scorecard, it's all of our partners and all of the activities they're engaged in. They also have money in this venture as well. But what you're approving today is merely our $37 million, which includes some of these activities. They're not all of our activities on this scorecard. So you're approving a subset of the money that the city gets, which will achieve this overall strategy that has numerous partners with investments. But we're telling you what we're going to do with the money we receive from the federal government via the state.
And so in this instance, I know the CAO is doing a report
Right.
because there is some fiscal issue. I mean, nothing negative, but just that they have to come with a report before it goes to council. Is that
Yeah, and
correct?
Beryl's here, so we're going to bring Beryl up right now.
Well, before you, please come on up and Mr. Smith.
Why don't you come here? So I was just going to say that the WIB-LEO agreement, which is the document that explains the relationship between the Workforce Investment Board, the city departments, and council, and the mayor's office, this is one of the very few documents that gets brought forward to the mayor's office and council at the same time because of the history of the relationship of the building of the relationships in the city.
And it seems like the way I served on the PIC during Bradley
Right,
days.
way back when, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
So, and this, I think the WIB has really, I've seen a greater participation even now.
It's-
It was somewhat new that the PIC was and the private sector involved, and I think everyone was trying to figure out how government works, and it was, I mean, they did some great things, but I think it's reached a.
Right. Most people don't know the arrangement. Actually, the federal legislation requires that you have a workforce investment board, and it's a shared responsibility. You cannot receive or expend these federal funds unless you have a board that's primarily comprised of private sector members. And the way it's unusual is because you're elected officials, but this actual board of appointees has as much authority in terms of formulation of policy. It's a shared responsibility between the mayor, the council, and the WIB. And you guys have come together on strategies and on how to expend the money.
Not to, diss my colleagues or our colleagues, but I think they probably know more than we do on these issues, so it's good to have them.
I don't know, you're one of the largest employers in the area.
Although we're both business owners and
Right.
so we have a little different perspective.
Right.
Barbara Taylor from the CEO's office. We are preparing the report, and we expect the report to be ready before Personnel Committee. It would include control instructions and also address personnel cost and any potential fiscal impact.
Okay. Let me just ask one question. Obviously, we've had reductions of all federal grants, and at a time they're probably asking WIB to do more. We're getting less. And this document we have is a well-worked-out document over years and years and years of work, and we tweak it here and there. So has the tweaks been made to look at today's workforce situation as far as increasing layoffs, increasing reductions in workforces, and how we then adjust to meet those current needs?
Two things have actually happened this year that's been unique. The actual federal allocation to the state increased, and partly because of the downturn in the economy. So this was the first time in the city's 5 years that we've actually gotten about even money than we've had in previous years. For our work source system, which we have taken cuts and cuts and cuts, and I think I've come in front of the committee many times saying that we're still doing about the same work with about 40% less dollars. So this year we were able to fully fund our work source system providers at 100%. So that has actually brought some.
That's why they haven't been knocking on our doors.
Exactly, and heading them up. But
Explains a
if I
lot.
can give you just some quick numbers, during this year we're going to see 132,000 people walking through our doors, and that's actually an increase over the last 2 years on average. And we're case managing close to 6,000 1,000 individuals. So the need is there, and there is going to be greater need. The governor has been giving out smaller discretionary grants. We received about a new grant for about $350,000 as his response to the downturn in the economy in the financial industry. We've also got some national emergency money on the wildfires. So they have been putting out additional resources, but albeit probably small to the overall need.
Our investment is static, and I know I want to sort of clarify something that Robert said. We no longer fund 100% of workforce development in terms of our system. We used to have millions and millions of dollars, as Robert said, 40% more money before. Now we've leveraged $20 million. We use our money, and these nonprofits leverage money from other sources with $20 million. So we don't have a full investment in it. It's sort of the funding over the past few years has been static, but we're leveraging money, and that's how they're able to operate. And quite frankly, that's why we haven't been reducing services. We've maintained services, and in some cases have increased them.
Very good. Okay. Anything else? Okay, now we need to move this to the council for final approval.
Personnel Committee.
Personnel first, okay. So we'll move it out of this committee with our approval to personnel and then to council. And you have a time frame, though.
Right, before June 30th.
Yeah. Have they scheduled it over there?
Yeah, we'll be working with the clerk to get it scheduled
Okay.
before June 30th.
And get a placeholder on council so you can get it done in time?
Last week of June, yes.
Okay.
And one last note, under the leadership of Mr. Benbow in the department, we've connected our economic development with our workforce development for when we talk to businesses that we could talk about our workforce issues and workforce resources as well as our capital needs resources that many of the small businesses in particular have. So the marketing of our tax incentives, that was the previous item, which we had a greatly expanded zone this year, that we're able to couple that with our loan products that we have as well as our workforce resources. So when we talk to businesses, we're talking about a package of resources with that. And we're still in the formulation stages, but we're really bringing some synergy between our economic development efforts and our workforce development efforts.
Council members, we're the understudies. Actually, I'm representing Charlie Wu, the chair of the Workforce Investment Board. Robert's representing the head of the department, Richard Benbow, so we need to acknowledge them.
Just but from a point of reference, it all started in CDD 20 years ago.
20 years
It
ago.
spun off.
Right.
And now there's a circle there. So-
Right. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. And I believe I have to vote yes on the first item then also?
Second item.
Second item. So with that, we are complete. We're done. We're happy. Thank you very much. My apologies for being late.
Just double.